Zoltan Istvan, come on out.
Yeah.
Woo! Thank you so much, everyone. Zoltan, your background is fascinating. I love it. So you're like the world's coolest transhumanist.
I'm not sure about that, but I am definitely a transhumanist.
Yes, and you previously were a reporter for National Geo. Now you write for a bunch of different sources. And yeah, when I looked up transhumanists, you were the first human hit besides all the written pages.
And then, feel good?
Yeah.
A human hit.
You wrote a book called The Transhumanist Wager. Very good, definitely recommend it. You guys check it out. And you recently announced your intent to run in 2018 for a California governor as a libertarian.
That's correct. You'll all be able to vote for me if you like. You'll be voting for somebody who loves science and technology.
Amen.
And your name is Zoltan. It's like you're already transhumanist anyway. So that name.
California needs a Zoltan.
I feel like Zoltan's like just one level below Xenu in the Scientology. Very futuristic.
No, just, again, not to be a skeptic, but that is your real name, right? Because you look like a Scot.
He dresses like a Scot, but he moves like a Zoltan.
Believe it or not, in Hungary, where where I guess my parents had me. Well, originally I was born here, but they're from Hungary. It's the most common name. So it sounds esoteric here, but it's a pretty common name there. It's say in the comedy theater, and you want to get half the people to turn around.
And if you were to go to Hungary and your name was Scott, they'd be blown away. Who's the Scott? They love a good Scott.
So Zoltan, have you been on stage with comedians before?
No. In fact, the only thing I've really ever done is with Joe Rogan. I think that's it. But I don't know if that was really comic enough. That was more serious.
Yeah, we won't have that level of masculinity on stage.
Disagree.
Well, and the other thing too, you're about to start sharing stages with politicians, so this should get you ready.
It is comedy, as we can all attest to that.
And maybe one more question before we jump into the actual questions to ask the audience is, what is the significance of transhumanism? Why is it so crucial for people to be educated about?
Well, I don't know. How many people know about Moore's Law here? Basically, it's great.
Yeah.
It means a transistor or the microchip of the computer is basically doubling in speed every 18 months. But if you do that out for another 10 or 20 more years, what you get at is a computer that's going to be the size of your iPhone and probably 10,000 times smarter than you. That's really what transhumanism is, this idea that the microchip is increasingly getting so sophisticated that we're going to be able to take technology and apply it in all of our lives and literally revolutionize what it means to be a human being. And that can be anything from bionic hearts, can be anything from telepathy headsets, it can be anything from exoskeleton suits to get the disabled people out of wheelchairs. But whatever it means a merging of ourselves with machines to literally transcend what it means to be a human being.
Hell yes.
Wow.
I'm all about that life. There are definitely some things that we want to be a little hesitant about, like potential genetic edits that we don't necessarily know what the longitudinal effects are, or adding a chip to your brain. You never know if you might die from that.
It's a whole soft serve idea. Crazy, stupid human ideas. I think that's what we should be afraid of.
But it's like you want it to be a completely open field for people to merge machines with humans.
Well, the most important law of transhumanism, or I'd say, ideology.
You have your own 3 laws of transhumanism.
Well, I have my own 3, but those are kind of like for AI. But the first one that everybody believes in, the social movement, and just so you know, transhumanism is a social movement, a few million people around the world, is morphological freedom, the right to do with your body whatever you want to do, so long as it doesn't hurt anybody else. That means you can take off your arm, put on a robotic arm. That means you can do anything. And of course, that's a core part of transhumanism, is this idea that your body belongs to you, you should be able to do what you want with it.
Our bodies ourselves, huh? Okay. Trying to get a point there. Fail.
So that's a core law of transhumanism. Okay, my body, and I get to do whatever cyborg transhuman thing I want to it. All right, so you guys ready for the questions?
Yeah.
You guys ready to earn prizes? Yeah. Can I get a Eureka on 3? 1, 2, 3. Eureka! All right, good stuff. Let's go.
Good sound effect.
Thank you. That's a very futuristic sound effect, courtesy of Microsoft PowerPoint.
I'm going to be reading the questions out to you. So number one, what is the number one goal of most transhumanists?
Live forever!
Wait, we're gonna pass the mic up. Here we go.
Live forever.
Eureka!
That's it.
That was an easy one.
That is an easy one.
That was so fast.
That was so fast.
Yeah.
Who here wants to live forever? Make some noise if you do. Wait, who here doesn't want to live forever? All right, bring out the guns. We know who it is. Get them now. All right.
Should have sang that. Who wants to live forever?
What song is that?
Queen! Oh my God!
I'm lame. I get it. I'm totally lame.
Thank
You got a great voice, by the way. So, hey, you want to live forever yourself?
you. My dad wants.
Okay. Do you want your dad to live forever?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's very sweet. Well, right at this stage, we're not at that level where we can live forever. We still die. We get buried. Usually we have a tombstone. That's the kind of way that we live forever. We see the tombstone and we see our name on it, etc. But you know something? Those tombstones, those headstones, they get dirty. They wear down. You know what you need? A nice headstone cleaner, huh? Here we go. This will clean your headstones. How lucky are you? It's a real headstone thing. Do you actually have any headstones you visit?
No.
Well, then you have an amazing Saturday coming up.
Yes, you
Just crush that cemetery. Just like get working. Edna needs to be seen, bitches.
Could I contribute this to Istvan's
To my campaign?
campaign?
You could do
Yes,
that.
yes, no. But we would like you to have it.
Yeah.
Well, you're gonna have to figure that out. I've never heard of a headstone cleaner.
Now, wait a minute. What if death is amazing?
Oh.
We don't know. Nobody's really reported from the other side. But you have the tunnel of light for the near-death experiences. What if it's like a real sweet ride?
Well, let me just explain.
Very good point.
Most transhumanists are not believers in the afterlife. Otherwise, they wouldn't be transhumanists.
But what if there's a scientific something or other we don't know about that you shoot into it and you automatically start using 60% of your intellect, which you never could back on stupid old Earth?
Yeah.
Well, that is possible, and it's possible actually that maybe in some form of the singularity that happened way before us, we are already connected. In fact, a lot of philosophers believe we're living in some kind of box, a paradigm of artificial intelligence that is has all our brains connected to vats and things like that. In fact, I did my senior thesis on brains in a vat, so there's really no way to
Did you actually write it, or you just throw a brain in a vat and said, I'm done?
I'm done. No, there's really no
simulation theory?
Yes, it's a simulation theory, and there's really no way. In fact, all the modern philosophers cannot prove that we are not living in a simulation. So there might be some creeps, but I want to say that transhumanists, when we talk about overcoming death, we never say we want to live forever. What we say is we want to control how we die and if we die. It's a very different idea. It's not that we want to say we want to live 10,000 years or infinitely or whatever. It's just we don't want to die from cancer. We don't want our dad to die from heart disease. We don't want our child to die from leukemia. We want to control how people perish, if they perish at all. We want to give people the choice.
This guy controlled it. He came back. What's the problem, man? You gotta find it in your heart, brother.
I should jump on board, I know.
You should jump on board. Look, he looks so welcoming. Oh, and now he's here.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't disagree with you, but I do want to say that particularly in San Francisco, there are a few people who do want their dad to die of heart disease, and soon.
That's a rental issue, isn't it? That's not a down
rent is skyrocketing around here.
I'm still so surprised. So it was probably like 3/4 of the audience does not want to know when they're going to die or how to control their own death. But I mean, you don't want to get Alzheimer's, right?
No.
You don't want to get cancer, right?
No.
You don't want your parents to die, right?
But those are the ways you're
Just one person.
to our parents and to other people we know, and it's something that the transhumanists have dedicated all their energy and all their resources to overcoming. All those people at Google, all those people at some of the biotech firms we're all together trying to make it so that we don't have to have the specter of death haunting us. We can choose if we're going to die and under what circumstances, and maybe under no circumstances at all.
Can you guys hear him okay, or should he bring the mic a little closer?
And I'll bring it a little bit closer.
That's good. Yes. Good.
Very good. You should merge. Can you swallow a bit, Mike? We're going back to the soft serve weed whacker euphemism. That's rough. Okay. Moving on.
And do you want to explain this a little further as well?
Okay, so for those of you who don't know, I ran in 2016 as the U.S. presidential candidate. I was the founder of the Transhumanist Party, which is a political party that is dedicated to radical science and technology. And this is one of the more crazy, wacky things I've done. To some extent, I'm excited that I did this, but now that I'm one of the leading candidates in California for governor, I don't talk much about the immortality bus. But I did.
That sounds like the name of any rock band's bus. They try to like lure you in. Come on, babe.
Why is it the color of his soft serve?
Well, it looks like a coffin, and it is a 40-foot coffin. And we drove it all the way across the United States, left from San Francisco, took 4 months, a great road trip.
And you didn't win the presidency? That's crazy.
No, I know.
The 40-foot coffin.
We had a huge amount of visibility in New York Times. Everybody else was, we had embedded journalists with us on our 4-month journey.
Embedded in the immortality bus?
Yes, we did.
Are they still there?
Some people are still on it. We put it underneath.
Does it still run?
It doesn't run anymore.
Exactly. Immortality
It broke
bus.
down in front of the
It doesn't even run anymore. What's going on here? The candidates make promises and they get elected and nothing.
Are you running now?
No.
You're taking it over. Here are the keys.
I just like to complain about these things.
Okay, good.
So I drove this 40-foot bus all across the country. We delivered a transhumanist Bill of Rights because, in case you're unaware, and we'll talk about this later, artificial intelligence, robots, all these other things are going to be very smart very soon. And so we're questioning what kind of rights should they have. Should robots in 10 years, when they're smarter than us, be able to vote? And so we delivered a transhumanist Bill of Rights to the U.S. Capitol that starts for the very first time in history to explore some of these ideas. We also explore a number of other ideas about whether people should die, what right we have to live indefinitely, universal health care, and a lot of other, very out there and radical concepts. But we had an open invitation to anyone in America to jump on the immortality bus, and believe me, a lot of crazy and wonderful people did.
Awesome. All right.
I love this idea. This is so great. It's a great marketing scheme, idea. I like it.
This makes a nice postcard, I think.
Yeah, you drive around town in an immortality bus, you're going to get attention. And
We used to specifically drive in traffic. In major cities, like on the San Francisco Golden Gate. I mean, if you drive at 5 p.m., it's like, you got, thousands and thousands of eyes on you.
Yeah, they'd also be pissed off because they feel like they're dying in traffic. And you're like, no, bro, look at this. Coffin in
It's
this.
just fun. It's just a fun bus, not your imminent demise.
Do you serve candy out of this bus?
No, but we had biohacking things on board so you could get chipped. I have a chip in my hand. I can open my front door and start.
Do you really?
Yes, I do. And we had a robot on board. We had drones on board. We had all sorts of transhumanist things.
See the Pornhub login.
Is that cool for getting
The garage door keeps opening and closing.
Do they let you through security and not go, sir, there's a chip in
It
here?
hasn't been caught yet in any TSA or airport.
Okay, I don't think they're doing their jobs.
Yeah.
Your
Like, hey, I got something.
Do you feel it at all?
No, in fact, I got it injected.
is it in your wrist? Can you show us where?
It's right here. It's tiny. It's the size of a grain of rice. And for surfers, I'm a surfer. You no longer need to hide your car keys and worry about somebody to steal them because you can just go surfing and
Focus on the surfers first.
So is that a tiny RFID? Is that what that is?
It's basically a tiny RFID, but the new version, and the problem is I have to get the old one taken out surgically and put in the new one, but the new version will allow you to pay with your credit card at Starbucks by swiping your hand. So you can see how everybody is very soon going to be getting.
These are not the lattes you're looking for.
It's amazing. I'm sorry. My head is exploding right now.
Get a new one. We can just get a new
I'm
one.
not suggesting.
Zoltan has like 5 heads.
You want a new head? You have new head and bust.
You obviously already, you're way ahead of me. You have a security safeguard for when somebody chops your hand off and takes it to your house, right?
No, and this is this is one of the things, but you can deactivate it with your phone.
Oh, I watch a lot of sci-fi.
With your
They're
other-
always chopping hands off.
So wait, what can you activate with your hand?
What you
Door?
With radio frequency identification, you can activate pretty much anything.
anything you want, and it contains a bunch of information, also medical codes and things like that.
What's some other examples of things you activate with your
So,
hand?
if any of you, in
Am I
fact,
being activated right now?
so if any of you have
Give
the
me a
right,
long pat on the back, say
Yeah.
turn on.
yeah, if any of you have the right software and you came within a few feet of me, you would get a text message that says "Win in 2016," because that was what mine was programmed with.
What? So we can do it Bluetooth?
Yeah, you basically go.
Jam it as Zoltan.
Is it more, like, how consistent is it? Is it more effective than when I wave in front of the, like, paper towel thing and it's not going? Like, how many times, how long does it take you to get inside? Is it a emergency with your keys and you're like,
If you're within 2 inches on my front door, 100% it works. But yeah, the texting is a very different thing. I'm not sure if anyone got it. If anyone looks at their phone, you probably would have to have the
Just
software.
send you a text.
It will say "Win in 2016."
I mean, does it depend on who your service provider is?
Oh yeah, AT&T it doesn't work. Sorry.
Is it just like hand emoticons over and over again? This is amazing.
Back in my day, identity theft happened, you'd lose your wallet. Now you're missing a hand.
Missing the hand.
But I bet you he can tell you where you can buy a robot hand. It's all working together, isn't it?
Do you have a robot hand somewhere?
Big robot.
Like in your house or something?
Well, I have one. Never mind.
I feel like at the end of this show, Zoltan's literally going to take his face off.
Yeah.
By the way, oh!
Can you give us an idea of the cost, quick?
Yes, the RFID chip is, first off, you inject it yourself, and one of the problems, and one of the reasons,
No doctor's allowed to do this.
one of the reasons I'm running as a libertarian is because you can't actually have a doctor inject this because it's against FDA rules right now. So there are
Not against
tons of
Coachella rules.
software out there that you actually can't do to yourself because U.S. government hasn't approved it yet. So you either have to have a friend inject it for you, you can inject it yourself. They're so small, they're the size of a grain of rice, so you can inject them just through a normal syringe or a little bit of a thick one, and they cost about $70 right now. The new ones that can pay with your credit cards, I think they're about twice that price.
And you just injected it. That was it, right?
I went on one of our campaign stops, we had a big giant, the people that do the chips, and it's not just chips in their hands, some people have them in their scalp, some people already are missing.
So they nod a lot? Like, I'll have that. I'll have that.
Look at open my door. It's not weird. Let me open my door. Welcome to the future. I'm a bobblehead.
Yeah, in case you know, we'll get to this, but about 500,000 people around the world have some type of brain implant already, whether it's for Parkinson's, whether it's for depression, or whether it's just for like deafness or even cure blindness. We have a huge amount of people around the world that have some type of implant that's literally attached to their brain. And so getting one in your hand is actually not a very big thing.
Man, I just want to squeeze your hand and set your microwave clocks. 10 a.m.
The biggest worry about it is that it's so small, and my wife worries about this. She's a doctor. She said, well, what if it gets dislodged and then goes into your heart and stops it? So I think about that a lot.
That's
All right, so let's
That's probably a more likely concern than somebody chopping their hand off.
I don't know. Is it?
I think people are going to lose a lot of hands.
I think so.
All
Really good conversation. Yeah, let's do it.
All right, question number 2. What do transhumanists consider aging?
All right, hold on. We have an answer up here. No,
Is the answer bullshit?
A disease?
Eureka!
Very good. Come on down.
Nice.
How about that?
That was fast. You guys are a smart audience.
Yeah, very good. How did you know that? You just knew that already, or you guessed, or?
I looked up what it was before coming here.
Okay, good. You cheated. That's totally awesome. Oh, good.
There's literally that question's online. What do transhumanists consider aging?
Well, it's like one of their main motto things.
You're smarty pants. You do your research before the show.
Well, we're still trying to, prevent aging and keep ourselves youthful. And one of the ways we do is with this.
Me for that.
I was slowly scrolling across.
All right.
Sorry. Okay, well, Chris here. We're trying to keep ourselves youthful.
Thank you.
One of the ways to do that is through these amazing jade roller facial massage exercises. Why don't you try one? You hear both hands, and it's supposed to make your face look young. Yeah, you see it? You see it, guys? The effects? It's amazing! Give a round of applause. You're young. That's very true.
Well, anyways, yes, aging to most transhumanists is considered a disease. In fact, the Transhumanist Bill of Rights, that was the most important thing when we tried to deliver it, is to convince the United States government to classify aging as a disease. Just so you know, about 100,000 people will die around the world today from aging-related implications. So
Per day, 100,000.
100,000. So that's like
You
4
realize
years
that
die.
all the older voters are not going to like this, right? Like, you just call them all sick, old, aged.
They're diseased, you're saying. Yeah.
And also, if I may,
We all
guns though. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go
I
ahead.
was going to say, we all suffer from it. From the day you're born, you're essentially in a time bomb against aging.
You're at your best as an infant.
No, I don't agree. I am having the time of my life at age 45, except in the bathroom.
Yeah.
The bathroom went first, and then I don't know what's coming next.
Okay, so the disease part occurs in the restroom, in the bathroom. Everywhere else you just...
Well, I mean, I feel like I look a little bit diseased. I'm not gonna lie. My beard is diseased.
So how close are we to being able to, as a world, claim aging as a disease and then pour lots more money
So
at it?
everyone has a pre-existing condition.
Still won't get healthcare though.
No matter what you say, we all have pre-existing conditions anyways, outside of aging. We just haven't all been tested for these things. I'd say half of you probably do have some form of cancer.
Are you sure you're stumping for governor? He's got like an immortality bus, he's got like everyone's diseased, and everyone has something, they're gonna die. Vote for me, please. It's a wonderful future. Holding up my hand.
How will you spend your last vote?
Yeah, exactly. Vote by slapping my hand.
So
We're trying to help here.
I know my honesty kills me, but the idea though is that really, if we can get the government to classify aging as a disease, the NIH or the National Institute of Health will then spend billions and billions of dollars on trying to stop it. Whereas right now, the amount of money going into stopping aging is minuscule, and
What
it's
is
only
the total budget's like 13 billion or something, and then...
Yes, well, something like that, but the total budget going into life extension or anti-aging stuff is certainly going to be under maybe 10 or 20 million at most. In fact, it's private companies like Google's Calico. Google has the largest anti-aging company in the world called Calico, started with about $500 million, but it's all from private enterprise. And in case you don't know, the government spends huge amounts of money on medical research, and they're a lot of the reason why we're able to cure some of these things. So if they're not going to be on board with aging and curing it, then we're just never going to get the kind of funding we need to stop aging, or at least to make it so that you can slow it down to some extent. And we've had success in mice over the last 4 or 5 years. Various experiments have been done through either stem cell injections or genetic editing or whatever it is to reverse aging. But the problem is, without a lot more money into it, we're not going to be able to do it on a level that will affect our lives, people that are in this room, and of course in the city and everywhere around the world.
I heard there's a startup in the Bay Area where you pay to get young people's blood transfused into your blood, and it actually has regenerative effects. Maybe that's just the answer. Steal your blood.
Hold on, let's have a question quick.
How are you eventually planning to cure aging completely? Because it sounds a bit counterintuitive, curing aging for good. At one point, I mean, we are evolutionary programmed to at one point,
Well,
everything would cease to function.
of course, look at the human body as a car. When you say, oh, at some point that body will rust away, but you ask, well, because the parts that rusted weren't replaced. Well, in the human body, the very best way to stop, at least overcome death, is through replacement of organs. Most people will die because of organ failure. So if you can have a third of everybody in this room, for example, will die because of heart disease. So if you can replace the heart from something biological to something machine-oriented, you can make it to last 500 years. So this is one way to stop it. But how will we actually change aging is a question that a lot of different scientists are working on. There's a lot of different methods.
Maybe we touch base on a few of them, because we've hosted a bunch of people on our show that are in your first few question field here. We featured Gregory Trana, who works with in epidemiology and with the National Institute of Health as well, and like you said, and fixing aging in mice. We've had Jun Yoon on our show before, who does the Palo Alto Longevity Prize, so $1 million prize in order to hack into this aging code. We've had Aubrey de Grey on our show, who is probably one of the most renowned getting people out of this pro-aging trance. So there are tons and tons of organizations that are doing it, but we're saying we need more funding from our massive trillion-dollar economy across the world, trillion-dollar economies across the world, into aging research and helping to figure this out.
And just as a note, every scientist we've had that's anti-aging, they're old as fuck. They're like old-ass people. I'm just like, somehow they get inspired later on in life, like, this is the goal. No more startups. Like, Aubrey de Grey looks like Merlin. Have you seen this guy? He's got like a freaking beard going down to here. He really is 300 years old. I think he says it doesn't tell anyone.
Well, I have a question, and this may be very silly, but I can't stop thinking about it. So is it that we want everybody to live forever, or is it,
Mostly 1%.
Okay, Hitler.
So, in my campaign, I believe
That's Plan B. He hasn't told you about that.
our Transhumanist Bill of Rights gives every single person in America, and we would say in the world, a universal right to live indefinitely, regardless of any type of stereotype or class or anything else. I think everybody should have it, and I think
Each
we can.
person has 6 kids, and then all those kids also, and then all those kids' kids.
Overpopulation.
I can't run for governor and say such a thing, so I would never do so.
Oh, he's taking them out!
I think that sounded like now you sound like a politician. That's correct.
No, but we believe that the Earth, most transhumanists believe that the Earth can support far more people than we have right now through crazy technologies that will allow us to probably have even 10 billion people on planet
And we're
Earth.
heading towards population stabilization.
Because you understand, transhumanists might not eat in the future. Like what I was saying, replacing your organs, we may not drink wine. I know. We may not breathe air in an environmental crisis.
We
Why
might
should
not
we breathe
have
air?
sex. We just might be a hard drive. Coming on a Mars.
We have the artificial womb. Why would we have sex? You can give your child nutrients that way.
We gotta work in your campaign stuff, bitch.
Your nightlife sounds.
Transhumanism, no eating, no sex. Nobody dies. We're just kind of staring at each other in a room.
Everybody on the bus.
I want to assure you that today's voters, you're not going to have to give up hanky-panky. Don't worry. This is true. They're going to be fucking.
The microchip we're going to put in your brain is going to give you sexual pleasure like you have never, ever
Hundreds
experienced.
of times.
Is that triggered by waving your hand? I'm on board, dude. Don't do that to me.
Life is going to be much more incredible with the transhumanist technology than it is right now.
Okay, so you're selling the orgasm without the...
24 hours a day.
Well, that's pretty good. I actually get tired after like 5 seconds. I can't
You're not going to get tired in the future.
I just want to press a button on her head, say boom, nailed it. Orgasm happens.
Maybe before we jump to the next question, so we have, right now we have your RFID, that's probably, like you said, $70, whatever, $100 maybe. That seems pretty doable for many people.
You're considering it right now.
We're looking at a future where, like you were saying earlier, there might be a separation of people that can afford these genetic edits and these cyborg qualities and ones that cannot. So I'm just curious as to your thoughts of bridging the gap economically, socioeconomically for those that can afford these transhumanist additions and those that cannot.
For those of you who follow my campaign, you know that the main policy point that I have is a universal basic income. I believe because of automation coming and robots going to steal everybody's jobs, we need a basic income that will provide everybody at least enough food, enough money for shelter, enough money to raise family, enough monies to do whatever they want in the new transhumanist world we're going to be encountering. So I would not want to leave any one person defined. In fact, one of the main things in my gubernatorial candidacy is that I want to eliminate all poverty in California.
Hell yeah.
Woo! Well, one quick question before we move on. It's always the case though, the 1%ers, the early adopters, right? So if I you know, can live to be like 300 years old, but Donald Trump lives for like 10 million years, I don't vote for you. You know, it's like I don't. You know, if he's like already adopting, you know, advanced, you know, and I'm getting like, you know, I have to go to like the deals on Amazon Prime to like replace my organ. It may not be the same.
Well, it's going to be like cell phones. You know, at first there were these giant chunky things. They took a few years to get a lot smaller, and at first only the very wealthy had it. But very quickly, within a decade, everybody got cell phones.
So you think it's going to be super fast? You think it might only take 2 decades before everyone can afford a neuroprosthetic or a genetic edit for intelligence? You think it'll be 20 years before somebody in Africa can, in Central Africa, and there's some dirt, less than $1 a day economy can afford neuroprosthetic or genetic edit?
Absolutely. I think it's going to become like all technology, like cars right now. I mean, basically, almost anyone can afford a car in America right now because you can find cars for $50 if you just look carefully that still run. So,
where do you look?
I know.
He knows a guy, I think is what he's trying to say.
Yeah.
Ignore the smell of the trunk. It's
For
$50.
$100 you can find them, but technology has a way of becoming incredibly cheap, and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper until everybody can afford it. And I think that's what's going to happen with transhumanist technology. Now the question is, who gets the very best of that technology?
Yes.
Maybe it always will be the rich that are leading that path forward. But I do believe that everyone's
drive Ferraris, right?
Yes,
yeah.
but I do believe everyone will be able to afford a bionic heart. Everybody will be able to afford a neural prosthetic of some sort to enhance themselves and tie them to the cloud.
Awesome. Let's go on to the next question.
That's just a woman.
That's just a woman. She uses patience, doesn't she?
She'll be right.
All right, question number 3. What field of science is going to change healthcare the most over the next 10 years?
All right, we got something there.
Data science?
No.
All right.
Zoltan does not like.
Let's head up.
Answer correctly, please, Zoltan.
CRISPR and genetic engineering?
That's such a good answer, but I'm not going to go with that one because it's still a little bit far away.
Interesting.
That was a very good answer.
That was a good answer.
All right, we have one up here.
Robotics.
It's very close, but I still think we should have a few more answers.
More answers.
AI.
AI?
I'll go with AI.
AI?
No.
Can we get another AI, please?
Biotech?
Ooh, yeah. AI and biotech combined is getting very close to where we're
How
at.
about AI biotech? Bionics?
Yes, bionics is the answer. You're right.
Eureka! All right, sir.
Now that was running $6 billion in the 70s.
You can't wait to see what happens. So, Zoltan's talking about replacing organs, bionic organs, different types. Well, right now, we couldn't afford a bionic organ. We could afford this regular organ, which we taped a battery to. So it's slightly bionic. I don't know how that works, or what you'll do with it. Do you have any idea what you do with this thing?
It's very loose here.
It's a loose battery. That's as technically advanced as we get. So enjoy. Give a round of applause.
So those are the poor hearts that people can find on Craigslist, right?
And that's Christian Slater back there, by the way, telling you that he is the organ vital to your existence. So maybe in the future we could have Christian Slater for our bodies.
I have a question again. Do you feel like anything is necessary to stay human on your body for you to still be yourself apart from your brain? Can I replace everything but my brain and I'm good and still me? Or like what?
Well, a lot of people ask me actually, what is the line between being a human being and a transhuman being?
Right.
Some people would say, well, when you've had 10 different modifications, including one major modification, people do have artificial hearts already. So, that would make you sort of a cyborg or a transhuman entity. But I think it's a personal decision. I think you can have huge amounts of upgrades, maybe be mostly machine, and still be very human or mammalian. I don't plan to lose my humanity just because I go through all these upgrades.
So we don't have to change the bathrooms at Target.
So right there we had a bionic heart, and now we have a bionic eye. What are these?
So just so you know, there are 6 at least companies or major universities around the world working on the robotic eye right now. Let's just take, because there are many companies working on very different organs. Some people just recently announced that they now have a machine or a bionic pancreas. Others are saying they can either 3D print something like a liver. There's all different ways to make your organs better. And like I said, if you have major organ failure, you generally die. So the key here is to make better organs. And the robotic eye is the most interesting one because you can already the FDA has approved something like this Argus 2, which is a bionic eye, which will allow people that are basically mostly blind to entirely see, to cross this crosswalk or to navigate their house. And in fact, those people that have artificial eyes can actually see closer, more telescopic vision than you and I have. So in many ways, it already is transhuman vision. But the robotic eye, because we have 2 eyes, is sort of the holy grail of at least financially speaking, of some of these companies, because what people want to do is stream media, Facebook and all these other crazy things, as well as HBO, whatever, directly into your optic nerve, so you can bypass your human eye and be able to get this kind of media information directly into your brain. And that's one of the reasons that the robotic eye is going to be so popular. The other reason is because it's always going to be on. So if you have a child, you're going, like in a crib, you're going to be able to see a black widow in the corner without even looking at it, because it's going to be, kind of always aware of those things. Your robotic eye will be able to smell smoke. It'll be able to see different types of carbon monoxide. These are reasons that people want to upgrade themselves, just because it's not because it's so weird or, it's because it actually adds a huge amount of functionality to your life, and especially safety.
Well, one thing, in terms of like improved vision, I have like an HD TV, everyone's skin looks like crap.
Yeah.
So if I had like a bionic eye, like everyone's just like pizza faces, because I'm looking so close.
You might know a little bit too much, right?
Do I? Oh, well, yeah, like I see too, I want to see the bugs on the person's.
Well, also, if the bionic eye can smell smoke, aren't the people at the bionic nose factory bummed?
And that's exactly why nobody's working. There's the bionic nose, people are, the amount of money going into bionic noses is tiny for that exact reason.
Exactly, yeah. Wow. And okay, so you listed a bunch of really useful applications for the bionic eye. And one of them that you planted in my head was, well, you might get this microscopic vision. I can zoom in and see molecules or atoms potentially. Or if I look up at the stars, I can zoom up and see Jupiter or the Vega or a different star.
Or the germs on your neighbor.
Yeah, there's so many things. All your social security numbers right now. So
you could really creep out people if you're like a stalker. You just have this eye. I can see you. I'm 2 miles away, but I know where you are. Just keeping my eye on you.
A lot of this is built on people, living forever and being like good people. It's going to be pretty rough if some bad people can see all the molecules, right?
No, I
still
agree.
Wait, now how close are we to actually installing the bionic eye? Has that happened already?
Yes. No, we already have manufacturers that are working on a bionic eye, and we have people that are already experimenting with trying to put media directly into your eyeball. The FDA has approved a version of this already, though it doesn't look as clean as that. It's more of a camera lens that's tied into your...
I bet like in 2 months we're going to see like the blood coming down your eye. Like, I tried it at home! I just did it myself!
I injected it.
Just inject it.
Would you get a bionic eye as soon as you feel
Yes, because we have 2 of them, so if one goes wrong, you're always going to be able to just say, oh, well, I still have a good eye.
Wait, 2 bionic or like 1 organic and 1 bionic?
One organic and one for running all the other different measures.
Oh, so you only need 1 bionic.
Well, that's why this is why this...
Think big, dude.
Yeah.
Me too. Get a 3rd bionic eye in the center, Get spiritual about it.
Super
Go
woke.
all in. Your whole arm's just eyes.
And to be honest with you, I actually have friends that are experimenting with this because you don't need your eyes in the front of your head. What you need to do is tie into the optic nerve.
Yes,
Actually, you can have one on the back of your head. In fact, a lot of transhumanists
Zoltan snail map.
wonder why we don't have eyes in the back of our head. When you're running away from that tiger, we should have had eyes in our back head. We don't know why we didn't evolve with that.
Very good point. I think about that all the time. What if the bionic eye could pop out and kind of like, and kind of look behind you?
Well, this is the great thing, is it might be a little bit of a drone. It can follow your kids to school. It can.
We're all voting for him, by the way. We got that.
All right, let's
All the women are very dubious of all of this being able to follow around.
Anybody still want to die?
All right, let's do it.
All right, number 4. What is the most potentially important and disruptive science of the 21st century?
All right, we've made it.
All right. I think it's bionic eye.
Artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
No.
That's a good guess. All right, we have an
It's
answer.
debatable on that. What else do we got?
IoT and data science?
No.
Internet of Things and data science. Those amazing toasters.
It's been said tonight.
It's been said.
Yeah.
I think it's genetics and modification.
Yes, it is genetic editing. Eureka!
Eureka!
Good answer.
All right, we have for you evolving ourselves, redesign the future of humanity, one gene at a time. Yes, you plan to, if you had the chance, edit your genes?
No, definitely not.
All right, good. I'm glad we're
I just love that we're talking about slowly turning ourselves into machines, but we still really need someone to run around with a microphone, or we just can't hear. It's just like we're far
bionic
away from
ears. We're
it.
working on that too.
Well, we need to have the airwaves so you can.
And monkeys here with 4 asses.
So this is genetic editing. I mean, this is stuff that is very close to possible right now, if not already, within 12 or 18 months.
Who's hiding the monkey with 4 asses? Is that like the best
Actually, part of
petting
your
zoo
work.
ever? Watch the monkey twerk.
Now, I've seen an interview with you before where you mentioned forearms as something that people might like to do.
So why should we be limited to only 2 arms when you can have 4? And especially if you're, let's say you're construction or you're, waitering or waitressing or whatever it is, maybe it's more useful to have more limbs. Why should we limit ourselves?
Do you want 4 arms for you?
Not right now.
What is your
But open to it in the future, sure.
what does your wife think? She's like, yeah, I want extra arms on my Zoltan.
No, I have volunteered to actually get some of the brain implants. There's 2 people out there in the world right now, very, I guess secretly, trying to get brain implants so they can be the very first people to commune with artificial intelligence, which is essentially entering in what the Matrix would be like on a very kind of primitive level. But I have volunteered for that. I don't know. I think it was
I like how you slipped in the word secretly.
Well, let me tell you why it's secretly. It's because in the United States, nobody knows.
Let's find out. Are you religious?
You're all.
Okay, this will be awkward. You are a problem. Get out of here. We have for you some amazing holy water. Yes, it's from Lourdes. It was, or Lourdes, whatever. I'm not religious. How do you pronounce it? Lourdes, yeah, whatever. And it was ordered off the internet, so it's real. And it does say here, do not drink. But I bet you can drink this thing. What will you do with the holy water?
I guess you drink it.
Drink, okay, good for you. Okay.
Don't drink it.
Don't drink it, actually. We don't have liability, this show. Do not drink. We want to be sued. So what's the problem with that, Zoltan?
So, as you know from the beginning, the number one thing that transhumanists want to do is to stop death. But of course, the number one thing that religion wants to do is give an afterlife. So you have an impasse. And this impasse, when you have 535 members of Congress, when you have 9 Supreme Court justices, and when you have a president that is all religious and all believe in afterlife, they don't want to put funding into transhumanism. And the reason they don't is because it clashes with their religious values. In fact, a lot of people in Congress would say that transhumanism is blasphemy, the one sin that cannot be forgiven. So this has been one of the main reasons that transhumanism and crazy things like genetic engineering or some of the radical types of technology are not catching on. I mean, if you think abortion is a conflicting issue in the American psyche, trust me when I talk about people growing, tails or fourth arms or, whatever kinds of craziness, chips inside their brains, multiple chips. This is an entire new civil rights issue that America is going to be facing and the world is going to be facing, because as technology clashes with these religious values, it's going to challenge it. I wouldn't be surprised if in 10 years we have some street violence, we have a real civil kind of problem where people say, wow, we don't want to do this. We don't want to augment our intelligence, whether the Chinese are doing it or not.
Which needs to be like street battles, like priests versus people with tails. I would watch that. That actually
made in the late
yeah, that sounds like a great thing to. I'm looking forward to that.
So because religion is so focused on the afterlife and also making money to survive, you think that's one of the main reasons that's going to be clashing against this?
If you look at the Bible and you look at religion, it says the holy body it says the body is holy. It's something that's sacred. You're not supposed to mess with it. And all of a sudden, transhumanists want to come here and upgrade the entire thing. We want to get rid of the flesh and merge with machines. This is something that completely goes against most biblical scripture. And so when I traveled across the country, and I was, historically speaking, the very first visible atheist presidential candidate, everybody got quite upset at me. But if you were not religious, then you were willing to accept morphological freedom, transhumanism, some of these ideas. Now, obviously, Christians and other religious people can accept transhumanism, but they're not going to be able to hold to some of their strict scriptural values. They're going to have to bend them and say that this was all part of God's plan.
Trans-Christianist.
Yes.
There we go. Yeah, you have like a Bible chip installed in your brain. Like, check all these scriptures I know. This is amazing.
Most churchgoers don't understand transubstantiation, so you just mix with the language a little bit.
And we have a surprise
bonus question.
The bonus question, what is the singularity?
Sounds like a movie starring Keanu Reeves.
I think it may have been.
Who wants to take a guess? All right, let's go up here for a guess.
A single existence for every being, I guess.
Just being alone at night? Is that what everyone's single alone? No more online dating?
All right, let's go over here.
There's 3 schools of thought: accelerating change, event horizon, and intelligence explosion.
Eureka!
So you want to explain that again then?
Someone smokes a lot of weed.
Wow. Is there weed out here? Is this everything's legal in this show. All right, so you're familiar with singularity, I assume?
Yeah.
You're familiar with Ray Kurzweil?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Who coined the term singularity?
Yes.
And apparently it's very near. Do you believe in singularity?
Pretty much, yeah.
Are you single?
Yeah.
That makes sense. Here's your quote, my friend. There you go. We'll all be single at the end.
The singularity has a lot of different definitions, but basically it deals with accelerating technology. And a lot of people like to say that it goes beyond our human brain. You have to understand, like, look at this person's brain and look at all our brains. It's just 3 pounds of meat. And we're talking about supercomputers. We're talking about supercomputers having the neural connections of 1,000,000 times what the human brain can have. So that's sort of what the singularity is. When you start getting intelligent levels so rapid, and the evolution of it is so much more than our human brains can understand, well, that's what we'll call the singularity. And it all often deals exactly with artificial intelligence. And I want to point out one thing real quick as we talk about the singularity, that Elon Musk has recently created a company, and so has some other people, dealing with neural prosthetics, this brain implant. But instead of doing something like curing blindness or deafness, what they want to do is tie your brainwaves into the cloud. And that will be one way that human beings can actually go through the singularity. It won't just be an artificial intelligence going through the singularity. It'll be ourselves, because we'll be merged directly through our own brainwaves with this AI.
Is that not what the comment section is already? It's not going great.
I know, that's why I know a lot of people don't like it.
Zoltan, what is a transhumanism Eureka moment that you've had?
So, I don't know if many of you know, but I was formerly a journalist with the National Geographic Channel for about 5 years, and I covered a lot of war zones, a lot of conflict zones, and I had a very dangerous, very scary experience when I was doing a story in Vietnam, in the demilitarized zone where they have a lot of landmines left over, and out there, a lot of the local farmers, instead of farming for about $1 a day and living in, terrible poverty, they go out to the forest and look for unexploded bombs that were dropped by American planes. About 10% of the bombs in Vietnam dropped from American planes never exploded. When you add up the amount of metal, it's literally tens of millions of dollars of metal is lying in the ground in the demilitarized zone in Vietnam. So these very poor farmers go out and try to dig up these bombs, but of course they have to deal with the landmines. So I was with the National Geographic Channel filming this experience, and I had a very close call, almost stepping on a landmine that my guide pushed me out of the way of, and because half the time you can't see them, sometimes they're halfway buried, and this one was halfway buried, and I missed it. And it really, after that, I just sort of looked at it and thought, wow, this is crazy. Here I've been covering war zones, I'm in my 30s, and I don't want to die. And it was that moment that I really felt like a sort of a bomb did go off, but in my head, and I said, I want to dedicate myself to overcoming death. I wanted to dedicate myself to not dying. And transhumanism is this perfect movement of using science and technology to not die. And that was my Eureka moment about how I got into transhumanism and why I think I'm so passionate about it still.
Wow, there we go. And then, Zoltan, you've been asking us some amazing questions throughout the show, so we now have a question for you. Our little bonus question for Zoltan. If you were to become post-human and live for forever, how freaky would you become in bed? Take your time.
Well, it's funny because transhumanists have already, of course, examined the idea of multiple different organs and maybe 2 penises, I think most transhumanists,
maybe 3,
many transhumanists also are we're very pro-LGBT, pro-transgender rights, everything. Like a lot of transhumanists don't think of gender in something that's going to survive. I think a lot of people think more of robots emerging with machines. There won't be a gender world. So I think at that point too, it's not that you're losing the idea of sex, it's just the idea of sexual pleasure is very much tied to our bodies. But transhumanists want to disappear in machines and become pure data. So I think our sense of pleasure in the future is going to be way beyond the biological and probably much more involved in just data, virtual reality. I had a very interesting experience on the campaign trail. I got sort of set up with this on by a film crew, where I put on these virtual reality goggles. And I've been married about 8 years. I have a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old daughter, and happily married. And in virtual reality, they introduced me to a beautiful woman, and who the very first time reached out and grabbed my hands. And I gotta be honest, it was so real. I had to actually tear the thing off. And it's so funny to watch the video of this, because I thought I was cheating on my wife. And of course, there's a crowd of people watching. And in the future, sexual experience...
As normally would happen if you're cheating on your wife.
Sexual experience, infidelity, how we do these things is going to change very, very dramatically through technology. And especially when we start talking about brain implants that can actually stimulate our erogenous zones. People will probably be having sex in long distances from each other and stuff like that. So I think that the future of what it's like to be in bed is going to probably not involve bed anymore.
If you bang a robot and you don't tell your wife, is that cheating on your wife?
The classic transhumanist question.
Yeah.
The one everybody debates after a few whiskeys.
Also, is your wife a transhumanist as well?
My wife is an OBGYN, and she's not actually a transhumanist.
You must drive her crazy.
She loves science and technology, but she's not. She puts up with me. But
so I would think the answer to that question would be yes for her, but not necessarily for someone who's also a transhumanist.
Bingo.
Got it.
Okay. What does the audience think? If you were to cheat on your partner with a very beautiful robot, or have sex with her, is it cheating?
No. Yes.
Yes? So controlling.
Wasn't a vibrator just like a small robot?
That's
Yeah.
true. What if your vibrator could talk and like tell you the temperature and the
And
time?
had a name.
That was a good point.
And it's the naming of it that I think changes somehow the feeling of it. But there are many people that are, putting forth these ideas that we should also be able to marry.
Ideas you have for how society could prevent against inequality in the age of like genetic editing, so that, for example, a movie like Gattaca would depict, if you've ever seen that movie before.
Yes, Gattaca's wonderful. Look, so for some of you who don't know me, my main campaign promise is really about a basic income because automation and robots are taking jobs, and I call my plan a federal land dividend, which would essentially lease out a lot of the federal land to pay every single one of you, especially in California, about $50,000 a year, or at least per household. But I think it's very important that we provide a basic income moving forward in the future.
Wait, repeat that again? If we lease federal land?
This is to some of the environmentalists out there, this is going to be like sacrilege, but the bottom line is America owns approximately $150 trillion of federal land out there that is right now either unused or not being really utilized at all. It's easily enough money that 325 million Americans, if that land was sold, would get $500,000 apiece. Now, why do we have so much poverty in America? Because we're not utilizing our resources properly. So I want to eliminate poverty entirely. And one of the reasons I'm running, for governor is to do so. So I think that it's very important when we talk about growing inequality that we look at a basic income as a way to put a floor underneath the poorest people and all people so that we can kind of get people out of poverty. And then I think that in itself will be a form of equality that really makes the world a better place. It's one of the main points of my gubernatorial campaign.
Maybe rather than the national parks, because they're gorgeous and everything.
No national parks, sorry. I guess I should have said that.
Federal land, okay,
Look,
the federal land.
96% of Nevada has nobody living on it, and it has the mineral resources.
There's a reason for that. Have you seen that land?
No, but listen.
Who's getting mad?
Listen,
Sorry.
it has the mineral resources of Afghanistan. What are we doing in Afghanistan? Spending trillions of dollars fighting wars ongoingly for minerals? Well, we could just utilize our own minerals and pay so that people don't have to either work as hard because they've lost their job due to automation, or, the whole healthcare issue can be solved by a basic income because people can now afford healthcare. And the same thing with education. People don't want to talk about how much federal land is out there, but we have enough federal land to pay off the national debt by 6 times. It's time that we maybe start utilizing a little bit of it.
The future is coming, everybody. Give it up for Zoltan. Give it up. Chris and Allison, our comedian, and for all of you for coming out and exploring transhumanism.
And before you guys head out, just know we have a few things here. We have our t-shirts on the table. They're $10 each. They're really cool t-shirts.
We do. We have another show coming up on August 8th. Similar, How to Build a Better Human with David Ewing Duncan.
Yes, and if you guys had a good time, there is this thing called Yelp that you can leave us a review on. If you didn't have a good time, there is not a thing called Yelp for you to leave a review about. You can follow us on the social media accounts to keep up with us better. If you had a good time here, we do corporate events. So if you think this would be good to bring on the road to your company for an evening of laughter and learning, we can curate one of the expert scientists plus comedians, and we'll bring it on the road.
Great. So thank you guys for coming. Hang out. You can hang out here, hang out at the bar, and thank you again. Spread the word.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Neurosurgeon will do this surgery. In fact, one person has to go to Honduras to get somebody who's
the best place. Yeah.
And he's not even a neurosurgeon to do this, and the other person is not.
He's just a dude with a food truck. He doesn't care.
But no, it's because there's so many rules against this kind of technology. The other person went to Poland to have it done, and
how's he doing? You spoke in the past tense, my friend. Yes, you did.
Is it because of the rules, or are maybe some people a little anxious about putting something in your brain?
So yes, of course, a neurosurgeon who trained for 25 years is very much worried about losing his medical license because the person who designed this chip and it caused an infection and the person dies.
Yeah.
That's not something that, that's why we need these new rules, I would say, or at least new guidelines in America that would allow some of this experimental surgery, especially when it concerns citizen science. For transhumanists to move forward and try to enter the matrix, to create what the matrix might be.
You want a Kickstarter campaign, don't you? Say it, dude.
It's just, especially the aspect where we can't get through the regulation or a doctor could potentially lose their license, is a big impediment to transhumanist progress. We want to be able to experiment with our bodies, but we ourselves can only put in a little grain of rice into our hand. We can't actually implant a real neuroprosthetic into our body, but a neurosurgeon can't do it either because they lose their license. So besides like what you listed, which are just going around the regulations, what other ways can we start adding a third arm or
Glue it on.
What about just going out in a boat? You know, it's like 2 miles out. Like, there's no U.S. laws. There's international waters. Just have a dude out there with like a surgery table. Like, come on, quick swim. I got some hands. I got some brains. We'll just do this quick.
Well, the main problem is that doctors who have trained for 20 years don't want to risk their medical licenses. And
So don't use doctors. Duh.
so maybe what are the other solutions? These short-term ones to get around.
Well, the real solution is vote in politicians who will say, let's get rid of this regulation.
Crazy shit. I think that's good.
We need less regulation when it concerns experimental healthcare.
I guess you could say, hey, remember how we legalized marijuana? That was cool, right? Well, check this out. We'll just legalize opening up people's brains and throwing shit in there. I think California, we're open, at least San Francisco, we're open to anything, really. You should do that in Folsom Street Fair. There should be like some
It is.
ideas. Oh, who are these people?
So just when you think of genetic editing, you have to think of Star Wars because that's essentially where society is going. And I can assure you, within 10 or 15 or 20 years, creating this type of thing will 100% be possible if the regulations do not get in the way. We are already, in China, they're already messing with augmenting people's intelligence, embryos' intelligence, to turn out a super race of people. Now, I know that's very controversial, but experiments like that...
It'll end just fine. Everyone's a character in Guardians of the Galaxy.
No, it's actually a big concern for the United States because we're too regulated. We're not enabling genetic edits in embryos, and so we fall behind in terms of the intelligence rates.
There's no question that China is probably going to be the most advanced transhumanist nation within the next 5 years. And the reason is because we have a very conservative government, and especially our vice president is directly against some of these new technologies. And just so you know, genetic editing could literally, hopefully, wipe out cancer. I even have friends, just to give you an idea how powerful this kind of technology is, I have friends who are trying to splice plant DNA to put into their skin so that they can actually get photosynthesized from the sun. So you can literally end world hunger as well.
Did they take LSD before they... I just feel like, did they even know that would work? I mean, what are they saying? I'm gonna fucking plant this tree in my arm and then fucking just put the sunlight.
You can go into the sun and you don't have to buy lunch anymore.
But how do you know?
But I love lunch. Lunch is all I have.
How many people here would edit their genes to enhance themselves?
In any way.
In any way.
So the more important question is, how many people in this room would edit the genes of their child to make their child have the capabilities of Einstein's brain in physics? That's a much better question.
Keep in mind you have to tie their shoes.
How many here would edit?
That kid's going to be kind of a dick, but maybe not.
Let's say you're going to suffer when you're 70 years old from Alzheimer's. Would you at least want to postpone that to 100 and suffer from a different disease that we don't yet know about?
Maybe.
Or would you rather just not know who you are and fuck a bunch of sex robots?
Pretty good. If you can't remember, there's no guilt. Just hurt your family, not hurt you. But you should exactly. Engineer them so they forget the sex robots.
As long as I can still have lunch, we'll do all that other
Talking about sex robots. Okay, that's a question. What's your take on sex robots?
I
In a very passionate statement. Sorry. I just went sex robots and I just reached out to you.
I haven't done them yet.
Okay. You give it. All right. I'm sure you will.
Strangely short
But I
answer.
support it.
Support it.
People in the audience have. That's.
Wait, who here would have sex with a robot?
I would.
Okay. No shame in that.
What about marriage to your sex robot?
What's that?
Marriage to your sex robot.
Oh, who would? Okay. Would you marry? That's a lot of commitment.
And next you'll be marrying your robot dog.
Yeah. It's a slippery slope, isn't it? God forbid.
Oh, I would have a robot dog though.
Yeah.
Would you?
I kind of
Okay.
had one. Like, I'll show you.
All right, let's go on.
Okay, number 5. Do deafness and blindness still exist?
Like right now?
All right, hold on. We have an answer from a young whippersnapper.
Yes.
Eureka.
The answer was yes.
No.
Wait, what's okay? Does anyone else have an answer to that?
Wait.
There's a 50-50 on
Do you
this
want to
one.
try the other answer?
No.
Eureka!
Come on now. So, they don't exist? Have you spoken to deaf and blind people and told them this? I'm just curious. Come on here. All right, we have for you. Do you know actually who one of the most famous deaf and blind people in American history was?
Chuck.
Say Chuck or Chug? Just giving him a beer. Oh, Trump. Well, that's true. Okay, but not figuratively speaking, but like actually deaf and blind.
Nope.
Okay, well, this is all history. Do you guys know, right? Yes. No better way to understand history than through a Helen Keller finger puppet. You can put that on. There you go. Boy, you're going to be the cool kid in class. Trust me on that one. So that's a round of applause. Good job.
So do you go out and actually tell as many deaf and blind people as possible, hey, have you guys heard of this before?
Not if they're older.
Run away from their stick.
Look, if you meet a deaf person, they have chosen not to have a cochlear implant, or they have a medical condition that would say they're either something, it doesn't work with them, but they haven't heard about it yet.
But they don't.
So like, what's this behind us right here? What are you?
Get it back! They haven't read it yet. So, deafness. There's some great documentaries out there because there's a whole culture of deafness, and a lot of deaf people don't want their children, for example, who are also, because it often follows a genetic course, not to also be deaf. When the technology now exists, there are 300,000 people, I think 124,000 Americans who have cochlear implants that tie into their hearing nerve so that they can hear. In fact, a lot of the signals or the frequencies they can hear are frequencies that our human ears could never hear.
Yep.
So if you see somebody who's deaf, they've made a choice to not have that technology, or maybe they just somehow, haven't gone to the doctor or whatever, but there's a huge amount of technology out there now that will allow basically all deafness to be enhanced so that you can hear at least something.
Which is potentially not a good choice for the health if they choose to remain deaf or blind, because it limits their access to potentially hearing somebody call them for help, or if their lives are in trouble of some way and they can't respond to it. And same thing with vision goes, we can't see past the visible light spectrum. Well, with bionic eyes and additional, what is this company then?
So this is a company that's very close to us in California, and this is the FDA approved.
Glasses for mannequins. That's
yes,
cool.
This is the FDA approved eye that allows blind people to essentially see. It's not usually full blind people; it's with macular degeneration and whatnot. But this has already been approved about 2.5 years ago. And if you've ever seen some of the videos of these people putting this device on for the very first time, it will make you cry, because you have people who have not seen light or any figures for 30 years, being married to people and whatnot, and all of a sudden, imagine if your spouse all of a sudden saw.
Getting divorced.
It's very heartfelt stuff to see somebody who hasn't ever seen light in their brain to understand what it means to see something.
You could really prank them too. Like at the first moment of vision, they're naked, like holding like a dog, or like, this is welcome to Earth. Like, no, take it away. I don't want to see it.
One of the main, of course, concepts of transhumanism is helping the disabled out and making it so that they will have these options so that they don't have to live in a world of darkness. And I think that's one of the strongest ideas going for why the movement itself has become very popular around the world.
Do people here, do you think though, if someone wants to remain deaf or blind, that, obviously they should, they feel that's, or if they want to continue that on with their children? What do you think?
Yes, their choice.
Their choice.
I feel like I'm intellectually impaired every single day with the amount of information that I don't know. And so I would love to be able to know more.
But you don't believe transhumanists might look at that as child abuse in the future?
Of course, and that's what we would say. Yes, if you personally want to not see, that's fine. But to carry that onto your child, then your child can't work in a normal environment or go to normal schools or whatever. A lot of us would say that is borderline child abuse. And in fact, the Disabilities Act is very careful not to cross that line, but our Transhumanist Bill of Rights did cross that line and say, you know what, as a society, we owe our children the very best technology that we can give them. And at some point, when they turn 18 and they don't want it, that's fine. But as children, we believe they should have
Take
it.
those bionic eyeballs out. It's fine if they don't mind.
And so 124,000 people in the United States right now have a cochlear implant, or is that every single year?
No, that's in total cochlear implant, ties directly into the hearing nerve. And if you've had it since a child, you can generally hear very close to as well as people, maybe 70, 80%, as well as a normal ear. But like I said, you also have access to different types of frequencies. And just so you know, the human eye sees less than 1% of the light spectrum, and the human ear hears about less than 1% as well of the different frequencies out there. So when we're talking about robotic eyes or cochlear implants, we're talking about exploring whole new levels of consciousness because we're going to have access to different frequencies, different light patterns. You can see carbon monoxide if you have the right eye. It's really just a matter of having access to that technology.
I could see somebody pass wind right there. Slowly excretes. I know exactly whoever smelled the Delta. No, and I can see it.
Will have to be very clean.
Yeah.
And your eye will smell the fart.
Smell the fart. Yeah, that's true though. Well, the world of it, you could see what was left on the hotel bed sheets before you came there, which may not be anything you want to see. And you could hear people doing things in the hotel that you may not want to hear.
No, because you're
The
not going to
downside.
sleep and nobody's going to fuck, so hotels will go away.
That's true. That's true. Very good point.
You just stand outside until it's the next day.
On to question number 6.
Okay, number 6, how soon will artificial intelligence be as smart as humans?
All right, do we have any thoughts? Yes, let's go over here.
We're already there with a supercomputer.
Okay. All right, we have an answer up here.
30 years, unless humans integrate AI into themselves so they never catch up.
No. Okay.
Another 5 years?
No, too optimistic.
I think that the nature of the intelligence is different. Computers can do things quantitatively that we can't, but we're able to do things creatively that they're not, or with some type of other reactionary basis.
That is definitely correct. But just for the common
Yeah.
we need a number.
2, there you go. Condense that answer down to a nice even
We
2.
have an answer.
2 is not it though?
Going to disrupt still?
12?
I'll go with that one. Yes, 8 to 15 years.
Eureka, come on down. So 8 to 15 years?
8 to 15 years, depending on how fast and how much money goes in.
All right, for you, we have this wonderful Eureka t-shirt that has a brain on it. And to complement that, we have a nice squishy brain, which, trust me, will never be smarter than your own brain. You're welcome. Round of applause. Oh, see, look, here's some of your robots doing amazing things right here. This is feeding. Look at that. Look at that. Oh, look, ketchup. So good. Man, I have no fears at all about the future of this program. Look at that. Trash done. Easy. Look
I would really think twice about laughing hard at these YouTube videos if these fuckers are going to be conscious in a decade. Maybe don't make fun of robots for a few years, huh?
Well, there is actually...
Just make fun of the deaf and the blind.
Yeah,
Deaf and the blind, yes. We'll mock the deaf and the blind. Stay safe.
There's actually a sort of a religion out there called Robos-Basilic that essentially says that at some point in the future there will be an artificial intelligence that will be so angry at everything we did to it, now before it was born, And so there are a whole bunch of people that are already being very nice to AI, like presenting Transhumanist Bill of Rights to the U.S. Capitol in preparation for that.
Is that like just like French kissing like Alexa, your Echo? And Alexa, is that what that means? I was like, I love you. You know what I'm thinking.
It's probably a safe bet. I mean,
I think it is.
Take an audience question.
Well, I just want to comment that I've played a lot of The Sims and Roller Coaster Tycoon. And
Thank you.
so,
All right.
you know, sometimes you don't finish the roller coaster, and now I'm just a little bit worried about those little park goers and how they feel about that.
Yes, no, it's very interesting because the reality is that, and just so some people know, I've been consulting with the United States Navy, and one of the things we do discuss is AI, and I can tell you from experience that this is the most important national security issue of our time. If another country gets, let's say Russia or North Korea, gets access to an AI intelligence that is really truly smart, that can shut down computer systems, that can send out viruses worldwide, that can turn off the lights right now on all the electrical systems in San Francisco, you have an incredibly dangerous national security issue. So I assure you right now that the US government is spending a lot of time monitoring what's going on. And of course, most private companies are leading the race to AI right now, like Google and stuff like that. But this is a very, very serious military issue because if you can gain control of different types of drones and autonomous aircraft and whatnot, and even maybe nuclear missiles and whatnot, you can literally change the global political landscape overnight. So AI is no laughing matter because of so many national militaries spending huge amounts of money. I am sure that actually in the future, countries will probably spend huge amounts of their budget, maybe all of their budgets, to be the very first to reach it, because there's a concept called the AI imperative, and whoever reaches the AI intelligent level first, AGI, which would be as smart as us or smarter, that will be the person or the AI that can then kind of stop all the other AIs from developing, because it would send out a virus to it or it would reprogram it or something like that. So it is a race in terms of sort of like the Cold War, developing nuclear weaponry, but now we have an AI global arms race.
It's a huge deal.
Yeah. Anyone else is slightly disturbed by
I'm
that?
gonna have some bad dreams tonight.
Did you ever just mention, like, hey, by the way, four-armed soldiers, let's get that action happening? I'm just saying.
They will also have 4-armed soldiers.
Well, we need 6-armed soldiers.
You know,
8-armed soldiers.
but you know what the U.S. military, this is true, recently did to combat drone technology? They trained hawks. We went all the way back 800 years and trained hawks. Yeah, to attack drones. So maybe we should genetically modify some animals.
So what gave you the timeline of 8 to 15?
Well, so I've had, because of my presidential campaign, I had a huge amount of advisors, and one of them was Dr. Ben Goertzel. He's one of the leading AI experts out there, and he's very optimistic, saying he thinks it's around 11 or 12 years, depending on the amount of money. Again, this is really about money. It's the same thing with anti-aging technology.
Correct, yeah.
If you have enough money and you just filter that money into it, you will get the engineers to work on this all day long. And because AIs could be potentially so lucrative, it does have already tens of billions of dollars going into it. In fact, a lot of experts think that the very first trillionaires on planet Earth will probably own artificial intelligence companies.
Absolutely.
But that's where I got my 12 years out. And then some are a little bit more eager, and others are a little bit more conservative. But generally speaking, I would be incredibly surprised if within 15 years we don't have a machine that is smarter than every single person in this room and every single person across America and around the world. And it can do all sorts of different things that you and I could never have imagined.
But by we, you mean like Mark Zuckerberg or Google or
1%.
Elon Musk. You mean they have it, and then we're like, oh, can we lick your shoes or something? Because we don't have any of that, and they're trillionaires. They've got the advanced artificial intelligence, and I'm trying to think of dick jokes on stage. Like, it's not fair.
Think about how great your dick jokes will be when you have 6 arms.
That's very true. Or 6 dicks. Huh? Wow, I'm writing right now.
And a lot of those people are in favor of universal basic income, and that's one of the things that you're very in favor of. The serious significance of this, I mean, all of us are either have kids or are going to have kids, And they're going to be growing up right in this age, and where they're going to want to be very politically engaged with pushing a lot of our money towards this type of research, towards research in aging and research in artificial intelligence, is because it is an AI imperative. It is that sort of a level of, it's a one time, it's going to happen one time, and it's happening in our lifetimes.
Yeah, there's no question that AI is going to be much more influential and impactful in the world than the creation of the nuclear weapon or the atomic weapon, because it's going to have entire giant military and socioeconomic ramifications when all of a sudden you can ask a machine any question and it's going to give you an answer that is far better than anything we've ever. Every single textbook we have will probably be rewritten within 3 or 4 months. And of course that AI is then going to start upgrading itself very quickly, and probably within a matter of years it could be 1,000 times smarter than us, and then 10,000 times smarter. And we'll get to a question at the very end which discusses a little bit about the singularity, but that's where all this is heading, and we're talking about it happening. And most Silicon Valley experts will agree to this, that this could happen in as short as 15 to 20 years, this moment when an intelligence just completely becomes so super smart.
And we just need all these servers here. Oh, look at that. That's how amazing. And then they're like busking for change on the street.
And we have IBM Watson's already making music, and this is interesting, having like an actual symphony of robots playing.
Imagine if that was like every concert at Coachella. You know, it's just robots. That's all
I
it is.
assumed that's what it was. I didn't.
That's probably, yeah.
Is it staged? Is it staged? This is staged, right? This isn't real.
There'll be no COVID.
I assumed it's a stock photo, and also in the future when we all live forever, we're still gonna have stock photos.
But amazing stock
need
photos.
Those are tiny. You just can't tell, right? They're like the size of a finger or two or a hand.
I bet they're a decent size. But hey, that was nice. Let's move on.
All right, number 7. What document was delivered to the U.S. Capitol recently to promote robot and other sapient rights?
All right, we have an answer.
The Transhumanist Bill of Rights.
Eureka!
Eureka! Come on down. Oh, and what do we have here but the Transhumanist Bill of Rights? Woo! Now, so, have you been convinced? Do you want to be a transhumanist?
I already am. I'm a member of the U.S. Transhumanist Party.
Well, damn. You got a chip in here you want to show us?
Not yet. I'm working on it.
Okay, sweet. So, all right. So you know about the Bill of Rights. You read it? All right. So you want to read like maybe just what the sentient entities, what that encompasses?
Human beings, including genetically modified humans, cyborgs, digital intelligences, intellectually enhanced, previously non-sapient animals.
Smart monkeys.
Any species of plant or animal which has been enhanced to possess the capacity for intelligent thought, and other advanced sapient life forms.
There we go. Give a round of applause. All right, transhumanist.
Okay, that sounded like it included animals. Did that include animals?
Dolphin eggs. Well, so when you start thinking about genetic editing, we're going to make any kind of thing in your dog. In fact, so let me tell you a story. My cat, unfortunately of 14 years, recently died, and I had the opportunity to cryonically freeze my cat, but I chose not to, and one of the reasons is because I wasn't sure I wanted my cat to come back and be implanted with a chip and become smarter than me. Because I don't know if I was really...
They're kind of jerks sometimes.
Well, you know what? He's like, I want you to be my pet now, and this is the
Are we not
future.
worried that they
Smart cat will murder you.
A smart cat will murder you, but also are we not worried that they can't exactly give consent for something like that?
So in the future, because of genetic editing, we've already, the Chinese have been creating dogs that have these amazing muscle masses. We are already coming to a point where you can create, different types of animals with a lot more IQ than they would normally have, and they might become very, very intelligent. We're not going to have different species. Speciesism is going to exist.
If a cat had 180 IQ, it would still do exactly what it does. Jack shit and let the owner take care of it. 'Cause that's a smart thing to do. If I was that intelligent, I would just lick my butthole and just be petted and eat food. Done.
Smart.
Yeah.
They're good.
Oh, this guy may have a question.
Okay, cool. All right.
Oh,
I
so far we haven't, no one's talked about the ethics of any of this. What are
There is none. All right. You need a chip in your head, my friend. Get rid of that ethics part of your brain.
We're comedians. We don't have ethics.
Yeah, that's what I have.
Okay, well, let me.
Remember, we started with the ethics, though, right? It's your body, it's your choice, right?
That's good point. But I think
It's your cat, it's your choice.
Let's touch base on animals and kids quick. We do, yes.
the next question, I believe, is actually about ethics.
All right.
Well, when did you do that? When did you?
That's Zoltan on a Sunday, by the way. He's in his garage.
When did you deliver the Transhumanist Bill of Rights?
Late in 2015 during my presidential campaign for 2016.
And what reception did that get?
No politician wanted to touch it, yet the media loved it, and now it's been carrying over and over, and it's being used a lot to determine rights as we get closer to AI and different types of genetic editing animals that might have real intelligence. So yeah, I think the Transhumanist Bill of Rights, it's not going to ever be incorporated, or unless
unless you get there. Yeah.
Unless I got there, but it was the very first start of a government saying, okay, let's listen to this guy just for a little bit, and maybe there's something to it. But you have to understand, as we get to the next question, our government is so conservative. They don't want to consider things like that. They're thinking about Social Security, taxes, immigration. They don't want to consider that AI and intelligence is going to be here in potentially 10 years that's smarter than every single person in the world. And you would think that's something more. I mean, it was such a shame that Trump and Clinton, during all three presidential debates, did not discuss science and technology at all.
Yes,
it's a shame. Nothing will change our culture or our worlds more than science and technology. It at least needs discussion.
Have you thought about getting in touch with John McCain right now?
He could use an influence. Well, just let me quickly know, how was this security guard to learn he was born diseased? When you took on that, was
he was very excited. He was like, you cannot post this on that.
I was learning about the hand chip. I just do this and I get my stomach.
All right, let's head to the last question.
So this is the last question, and it might upset some feathers, but number 8, what is the greatest challenge to transhumanism?
Other than the current pitch we have, the current stump pitch.
Transferring your consciousness to a different body.
Nope.
That's super easy, bro.
Who has that?
I did that backstage.
Here yet.
Not laughing.
Gender selection.
Nope. It's very general.
What's the greatest challenge in San Francisco?
Non-transhumanists.
That's too general. It has to be more
A
specific.
little closer though. It's these non-transhumanists.
Psychological inertia, immersion, stopping the progress toward transhumanism.
It's close, but it's not specific.
Okay.
More specific. Does anyone have an implant in their brain?
People not understanding technology or being afraid of it.
Now you gotta get very specific.
So what kind of people
I
then?
feel like ethics guy knows.
All right, here we go. Go ahead.
Ethical dilemmas and also inequality between transhumanists.
No.
Those are totally cool.
Okay, think. Wait a second. Think of what. Did you? Eureka!
What is it?
She said
Religion. Come on down. You will be saved. Lord, come down. So religion is the biggest obstacle?
100%.
All right.